bio here. Great. So most of you probably know Tony as the treasurer here at Church of the Holy City. But what you may not know is that he is what I might say a serial entrepreneur. So Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but an entrepreneur focused on creating social impact and really redefining the social sector. Tony currently works together with Rich at Markham Social Capital Advisors, helping social companies develop new strategies and grow. He's a creator of startups such as DSY LLC and Zombie Coffee and Donuts. And through its unique business model, Zombie provided a way for nonprofits and communities to fundraise and raise money for over 100 nonprofits to date. So I would love to hear more on that, Tony. And I was also very curious to hear that you returned to your alma mater, University of Georgia, to lecture and assist with the Society of Entrepreneurs there. So very, very exciting. Welcome, Tony. And I'll give the floor to you to fill some of the gaps about your spiritual journey and journey as a social and spiritual entrepreneur.
Thanks, Katerina. Yeah, I'd like to just kind of tell my story and my path real quick. I think that'll give an overview of some of the social projects that I've worked on, and definitely what has been much more of a recent realm of spiritual entrepreneurship, because I definitely grew up in a very secular family without much spirituality or religion until I got involved in this church. So kind of just tell how I got there. I guess serial entrepreneur, I'll happily take that title. I definitely had a little bit of that even since I was a kid. I remember as a child, I sold my old toys on the street, and I would also, me and a couple kids in the neighborhood built a haunted house that we sold tickets to every year. So it's definitely always been there a little bit. And I think a lot of that comes from my family as well, seeing them do a lot of entrepreneurial things when I was a kid. Around the time of high school, I started to build websites. I kind of learned that and was selling some pretty basic websites, and that kind of got on. And I also, around that same time, I joined on a student government as the president of my class. And I think that's really when I started to realize that as much as I loved entrepreneurship, I loved social impact and community work even more. So around that, and that really led me to where I am now, more so because when I got to college, I started to work on the idea for Zombie Coffee and Donuts, even in my freshman year. And rather than just wanting to open up a coffee shop, the real idea behind it was to prove that social business works. We really wanted to make that goal, especially with something as simple as a coffee shop, just a retail store. You know, if you can show that the social business model is not only the right thing to do, but it actually creates more longevity for your company because you help the community helps you back, and it all goes full circle. I always think it's the way that the world was really meant to work, and sometimes we just get lost on the profits, but really you will have much more longevity and prosperity when you are doing that social work. So around the time of my senior year, we finally were able to open the store. We had worked on it for a few years before that, but the first store was opened at the college I went to, Athens, Georgia. And when we opened it, we really wanted to create a unique model that focused on that social impact. So this happens at all of our stores, but at Zombie Coffee, we give 5% of our sales, regardless of profit, to a different local organization, creating impact in the community each and every month. We do this in a pretty unique way. We let the customers come in, and it doesn't matter how much money you spend. Everyone who walks in the store gets to vote on 3 different organizations. We put each organization on our wall, and they get to read about all 3 and vote for whichever one their favorite is. The winner gets the 5%. But if you don't win, you even get put back into the program, and you'll probably be back on the wall in a year or less. The real reason we do it this way is because it actually really functions as an educational model for the community to show them what kind of organizations are doing good work in their town, especially because these are smaller organizations, as well as provide that financial assistance to the organizations. I really think this educational model is a great way to do things for us, especially in that community. And I've seen its impact firsthand, and I can't imagine what kind of impact it has even when of the things I haven't seen. But I know there was one month where one of the programs that they didn't win the 5% that month. They did actually a little over a year later, but they didn't win the 5% that month. And someone saw the program on the wall and actually donated. It was a literacy program in Athens, Georgia, and they donated 5,000 books to them, which probably was a lot more value than the dollars we would have given them. So that was pretty heartwarming to see and made it feel like the educational aspect of things was really worth it and working. So that was inspiring. And we do a lot of other things too. We try to bolster this model by doing charity nights most weeknights. So we do different events to kind of raise awareness or have a group there. There's one group that comes often called Chess and Community. They have mostly impoverished kids playing chess with police officers because it helps the kids next time if they ever get booked by a police officer, instead the police officer might say, I know this kid, he's a good kid. Let's not do this, and kind of creates that dialogue and help those kids. But we work with a bunch of different programs like that each and every week. And then we give a lot of in-kind donations as well. This obviously is a little bit different than what I do now with Rich. But the model was kind of the inspiration to work with Rich. What Rich and I do together is we work with, honestly, companies all around the world whose models are focused completely in social impact. So the business model creates impact in the world, and that is what is creating them to also be a sustainable company. When I met Rich, I told him about my work with Zombie Coffee, and he told me about his work with social entrepreneurs that he was already doing before I ever got involved. And I was really inspired by it. My goal with both Zombie Coffee and I would say in my life is to show that social business works and is actually what every company should be doing. And Rich was doing that with businesses around the world. So I was inspired, but I was really focused on what I was doing with zombies. So, at first I started to work with Rich, just a little bit, just because I was so fascinated in what he was doing. But eventually I was so passionate about what he was doing, as much as I still love and run the stores, but I made that my full-time job just because I was inspired by the work we were doing together. To get into more of the spiritual entrepreneurship side that's happening more recently, shortly after Rich told me about his passion for the church and how he felt spiritual and had a focus on spiritual entrepreneurship, especially at the church. I think he saw the work I was doing in social entrepreneurships, but also I told him that, he would invite me to the church and I would say, I'm secular. I was born into a Jewish family and I don't really consider myself religious at all. And he said, if you're not religious, then what's your moral compass coming from? Why do you care so much about doing social entrepreneurship? And I said, without religion, I think at a certain point in my life, I really was wondering, especially in college and later years, what the purpose of life is. And I think I always say my purpose is I really want to leave this world better than I came into it, and hopefully profoundly impacting people and creating ripple effects that would create change long past when I'm gone. So that's the hope, especially with proving that the social business model works. So Rich would ask if I would like to come to church, and I, as both a secular child and one who grew up when the churches were coming out with a lot of sexual abuse cases, I did not view church well. I think that reigns true for a lot of people in my generation. And I thought there was no way I was ever stepping into a church. Eventually, Rich got me to come for a non-denominational event, and it was great. And when I went to that event, I also noticed the community was coming together, discussing these topics. And there it was for me. The community and the conversations we were having as a community were just amazing. It was really inspiring, and it kind of got me past that initial hump with the background I had. I was inspired by all the people in the church, the dialogue we were having. And after that, I knew I wanted to be a part of the community. So I started to come to the sermons every week, uh, and to hear the sermons and follow up discussion that was so relevant to real life and made us ask important questions, and think of ways to better ourselves, each other, and the world. And that was really quite fascinating to me, and something that I never thought of church as. I always thought of church as kind of, they say the same thing that I don't really understand every week, but this was very different to me and was really discussion that made you look inward and had a lot of applications to real life. Like I said, I think a lot of my generation shares that same initial fear around church or religion as I do, or well, I did. But we are kind of stuck in that old definition of what we grew up seeing from the outside, or even some people from the inside. What we have here at Church of the Holy City is something completely new that I think would appeal to literally anyone. And that is because we're accepting everyone and never judging anyone. Even me, as a secular kid who was born into a Jewish family, I've never once felt judged or unaccepted or had any of my opinions, neglected. And so we really have an open dialogue that challenges ideas and never shies away from topics that I think are usually avoided, not just by churches, but by everyone. It's, we jump into the topics that they always say never talk about it at a dinner party, right? The authenticity of this community and its dialogue is something that is near impossible to find in this world anywhere else today. And I think that's really what drew me into it. And seeing all the spiritual entrepreneurs that we have in this community, and that dialogue, and everyone really wanting to change the world and change the way that they think about themselves and challenge their own thoughts. I think it's something that the whole world is honestly craving, and something we've lost. So that really is what brought me into here. And like I said, it's pretty relatively new to me, but what got me into the spiritual side of things and the spiritual entrepreneurship side of things.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Yeah.
Let me pause the recording here so we can open up to dialogue.